Welcome to the Power of Nature podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Waldo. In this show, I talk about how nature and the natural world can communicate with us, how it can communicate directly and individually with each of us, and how this can create immeasurable benefits for us in our lives. I share stories of my experiences doing this as part of a regular and ongoing practice, and I talk to others about their experiences with the power of nature as well. So join me as we go on a journey of learning about the power of nature, how it can communicate directly with us, and the impact that it can have on our own lives. Welcome back to the Power of Nature podcast. In today's episode, I'm talking about how the loss of one of our chickens reminds me about kind of like our own unique energy, our own unique self, our own unique contributions to the world. So let's dive into this. So we became chicken people. We became chicken stewards. We decided to get chicks. Gosh, was it last year? I'm losing track of time. I guess maybe it was. I'm thinking that's when it was last year. It's hard to imagine. But we basically, when we moved to Montana, had never had chickens, had never, had any animals on our property other than cats and dogs. But I grew up with horses, and we moved here to our property in Montana where we have just under 5 acres. We brought I got back into horses, and I got a horse again and brought the horse on our property. And we had always been curious about chickens since moving to Montana. It's like, oh, wow, we could have chickens. What would that mean? So we kind of watched and observed for the first few years here and just felt way too inundated to take it on. But I think it was last year. Yeah, I actually checked in my photographs because it's hard to remember life without chickens. But yeah, it was this month last year when we decided to take the plunge. And we originally were going to get 6 chickens. And then we thought, well, sometimes we've heard that they don't make it when they're little. So we thought we would get 8. And then somehow, I don't know, we ended up getting 10. I don't even remember what the logic was then of how we ended up with 10. We went from 6 to 10. So we had 10 little chicks and, kind of jumped headfirst into chicken stewardship. And it was really interesting to embark on this because we didn't know anything about what we're doing. I mean, there's still a lot we don't know, but we're navigating it. And I've really just loved having the chickens in our lives. It's definitely been a lot of work. It's not been, a walk in the park in terms of just making, like, building a coop or modifying a coop we had and all of that. But I really love having them in our life. And I really got attached to them. We got 10 hens, or what are they called when they're little? I forget. Pullets. I think they're called pullets. I'm forgetting. But what are now 10 hens. And 2 of each color. We were advised to get 2 of each breed and or color so that they would recognize each other. And we grew really attached to them. I would spend all kinds of time with them when they were little and, really bonded with them and just kind of really got into them. And I did a previous episode about chickens in this podcast, episode 17, which was titled The Wonderful Experiences We Can Have with Chickens. So chickens have been amazing. They've just, I don't know, they've just really enriched my life in particular. I think my husband's had a similar reaction. My kids haven't had as much interaction with them. I think if they were younger, it would be different. But I know that they've really affected my life. And we made it through, the little chick stages and didn't have any issues with any of our chicks or chickens. We had been kind of emotionally prepared for them to not make it through. Not all of them, that we were told that was a very strong possibility, but they all did. So imagine our dismay, or my dismay when, here we have these chickens. They're now adults. They're a year or almost a year old. And I went out to the coop. This was, I think, last week or the week before. And, I always do a count to kind of just make sure, because 10 chickens are a lot to kind of keep track of. So I looked and I saw one of the chickens in the coop just kind of not moving. And sometimes they brood in their little brooding boxes, but not in this spot. And I immediately, ran into the coop, or kind of crawled into the coop and realized that the chicken wasn't alive. And it was so hard. It was so hard to experience that. Now, there are some things that, because people had talked about chickens passing, and not always making it and whatever, like, I had never named all of our chickens. I had started to, but because we have 2 of each color that look very similar, it was kind of hard to tell them apart. Some of them you can tell them apart, but others, they were harder to tell apart. So I started to, I don't know. I had kind of wondered if I should have named them, because I did come up with names. And I thought, well, when they get older, I'll name them. And then I ended up not. But when we discovered the chicken that hadn't made it, and she was one of our Buff Orpington chickens, which is kind of like a solid yellow color. I don't know. It was really hard. It was really hard. I felt devastated. And the crazy thing is that our 2 Buff Orpingtons, one of them was a chicken that was kind of like she seemed to be kind of like the lead hen. And then the other one was kind of larger and didn't really, I don't know, didn't seem to, I didn't have as much of a connection with. But the problem is that they had kind of grown closer in size, and it was hard to tell them apart. And we had originally thought that the larger one that was not the leader is the one that had not made it. But then my husband started wondering if it was the one that had been the leader that had passed. It's really kind of hard to tell. I think that the chicken that passed is the one that was not the leader. And I'm not sure. We still don't know what happened. But the thing that I mean, I do not do well with any animals, losing any animals. I've just always been that kind of a person. Like you know, even when I was, I don't know, like when I was younger, or even just as a younger adult, if I would see an animal on the side of the road that hadn't made it, that had died, I would really feel it. And so, it was really hard to have a chicken not make it, because I have a really strong connection to these chickens, and I have a really strong, I don't know, just, I feel like they have taught me a lot about life. I never thought that I would learn so much from chickens. I respect all living creatures, but I never really realized just how much of an impact they can have on us, how much of a connection we can have with them. And so having this one not make it was truly really hard. It's still really hard to talk about it right now. But the thing that I want to share on this is that, I feel like experiences happen to us. We can have experiences and we can gain insights from them and learn things from them, or not. And one of the things that I feel like, I really learned from this chicken passing is a reminder of just like how much each individual thing in this world, with its own unique essence, contributes to the energy of the world. And I think that when we start to see this with animals, or I even experience it with trees and things like that. But I think it's easier for a lot of people with animals, if you develop kind of a real connection, is just how special and unique each thing is. Each thing. Even a chicken in a group of 10 chickens that didn't have names, like the essence of that chicken that we don't have anymore is a loss of a particular way, a particular energy, a particular essence of that chicken. Now, I've talked about this in my other shows, like how every, like all of my cats, all of my dogs, all my horses, all, my animals, or people, when they pass, loved ones, friends, whatever, that when someone leaves their physical form, that energy, that unique signature of all the combination of things that they are, that is very unique to them, which is really important, very unique to them, means that that's not there anymore. It's not at least accessible to us in in our everyday awareness, in the same way. I mean, yeah, you may have different positions on how you can connect with the and feel, let's say if you have a loved one, you can still feel the memory of them. You can have an experience even, of having some kind of communication with them in non-physical form or not. But the reality is that it's still not the same as, just seeing them in physical form, being able to communicate with them in that way. And I think that when we start to realize that every single thing, in particular, when I think about that, I think of things that are nature made, natural made. So like people, animals, wild nature, basically created by our creator, our source, that those things are really, they are divine, I think is the simplest way to put it. Like what I have found over and over and over again is that, there is a unique set of qualities and attributes to everything like that has been created. And although we may not always see those things, it's like they're part of this larger plan, a larger system, if you will, that is in existence, that our creator, all factors in. I mean, I'm always blown away at the larger kind of plan that is always existing when I tune into my, my inner self, the soul part of my inner self, that is that tapping into that, what I would call source energy or God energy or maker energy, or, some people might refer to their connection with Jesus. It's the larger thing that goes beyond really what our rational and logical minds can know, and there is an amazing underlying force and intelligence and kind of a plan to all of it, I have found. This is what I've come to learn and experience more and more the older I've gotten. Things don't make sense, but I realize the amazing kind of divinity that is present in nature. And as I've gone on in my life, in experiencing that, I've come to appreciate and respect that divinity more and more and more, because it goes beyond certainly what I, from my current vantage point, could ever conceive of. It just goes beyond that. And this is something that I talk about a lot in all of my shows in relationship to our inner self, because I believe that our inner self, it's made up of kind of like, I find it helpful to think of kind of like different parts of it. There's our body, which has its own innate wisdom. There's our heart and our feelings, which are part of our guidance system. there is our kind of like the focusing, our ability to focus and choose, which has to do with kind of like our brain or our mind. But that's kind of a slightly different conversation in there. And then there's our soul, which to me, however you think of that, I think of it as the connection or the part of us that has such a higher wisdom, has such an awareness of such a bigger plan, such a plan that is so, how do I explain it? So grand, so intricate, so perfectly perfect that it kind of blows my mind. And, as I've learned, and I talk about this in all my podcasts, like learning to listen to my inner self, which includes that, how I have had experiences that defy what people have said is possible, or what, my brain has said is possible, what other people's brains have said is possible. And I've had it happen over and over and over again. It's kind of just mind-blowing. And how this ties in to this chicken is that I think that when we start to kind of just slow down and tune in to ourselves and tune into like nature in particular, anything natural or nature made, any kind of animal, plant, especially if it's wild versus completely man-made. I find it easier that it's like we can, well, first of all, the show is all about how when we tune into that, it's like we can get access to wisdom and information that is really helpful, that can help us on our life journey. This is certainly what I've experienced over and over again. How much I learn from the animals and the wildlife in my life, and the mountains and the trees and the lake, and I learn things that are obvious, and then I also feel like I learn things that just even go beyond my kind of conscious awareness, beyond words, like sitting and listening to the lapping of water of a lake on the beach, or the ocean waves. Like, I can't rationally describe that. I can't rationally define it, but I know that it has a huge effect on me at my deepest core when I sink into that. When I go out into the forest and I connect with nature, and I'm, I kind of get out of my head and I let myself just be present and kind of like let go and drop the oars of control and just tune in to nature. And I've talked about this in this podcast. I start to see these amazing things, like little bugs or deer come right up to me, or, a bird, or I notice something in a tree, or I see light, or whatever it is. It's like these magical moments. And I think that when we allow ourselves to tune in to, whether it's trees and woods and mountains, or it's a chicken, or it's our pet, or it's an animal, when we tune into these aspects of nature and the natural world, and we just kind of start observing them and we start just allowing ourselves to kind of drop expectations, and we just start letting them show us their wisdom, and even become open to the idea that they have wisdom to share with us, that it is an amazing thing, that there is so much that we can receive that can benefit us in navigating our lives and navigating the world. And such is the case, with our chickens. Like, I never expected, like, for us, it was just kind of more like, oh, this kind of random thing, like, we should get chickens because we live in Montana now and they're kind of cute and it might be kind of cool to have them. That was like the draw. That was our motivation. And yet we embarked on bringing these little chicks home. They were like 2 days old, these tiny little things. And, started to really learn about them, started to really learn about their different, their different personalities, their different ways. I started to really observe them and observe, like there was the black one that would always come and sit on my hand. There was the Wyandotte that would always come and perch on my leg and just seem to just love that. They're the ones that love to climb up on my back, which many of them did, and still do. They like to get up on my shoulder and hang out. And, in me learning to just be quiet and let them show me things about them, and I just kind of sit and observe, there's wisdom that has been communicated from them. And part of that is also just how each of them and everything that's been created is unique. Every single thing to me is part of, it's like a unique essence, a unique combination of things. There will be no chicken like the one we lost. Again, no matter how many hundreds of chickens I've had, I have in the future, I know there will be none that are exactly like that chicken. Just like there is no person that is ever going to be like another person that, that I know that is transitioned or is even alive. And I think that when we start to open ourselves up, this is what I've found, when we start to open ourselves up to, embracing and starting to see the uniqueness, the unique signature, the unique energy, the unique essence of other things around us, especially nature, natural, it also helps us start to appreciate and respect and value more the essence of our own unique energy and signature. I found that the more that I started to learn as a kid, hey, there was this cat, that we had, and it was really different than every other cat. And when that cat, passed, it wasn't here anymore, I started to realize, appreciate each cat for what they are, appreciate each animal for what they are. But as I've gone on a journey of doing that with animals, and then have gone on to do it with other things too, for sure, other parts of nature, even like trees and mountains and all of that. I've learned to do it with myself more. I've learned to be kinder to myself. I've learned to appreciate more the things that are unique to me, that are not things that other people are or are doing, and to appreciate their own unique essence, and to start to realize that we don't. I feel like this is really key, because when we start to appreciate our own unique essence and we are kinder to ourselves in allowing ourselves to be that, we then also become kinder to other people in allowing them to be their own unique self as well. And this is, very much in contrast to a world in which we live, in which, there is kind of like a default way of being where there's almost like a proclivity to be more like others, to like find safety in, to feel like we're unsafe and to feel like we need safety in numbers, or to be with our people, that people that are different or have different perspectives or different ideas, can be scary, or can be, we could be, it could be a risk, or we could be in danger. But the more that we embrace our own kind of like uniqueness, which I think comes also from seeing that in nature, or we can learn how to do that from nature. We can see a chicken that's not like any other chicken, or a cat that's not like any other cat, or a horse that's not like any other horse, or maybe a tree that is not like any other tree. Have you ever had that? I've had relationships in the last 5 years with trees that I would have never expected. I never expected to look at a tree and have a relationship with a particular tree that would change things for me, but it did. I never would have expected that. To me, trees were just beautiful. These beautiful things. They're in the forest. I love trees, but I never had a respect for an individual tree the way I have since then, or in the last 5 years, I guess. More than 5 years, I guess, more like 8 years, where I started to really kind of realize. But the more that we can connect with and start to appreciate these things in nature, that we realize the essence of it. There is something so beautiful and so valuable and so unique. The more we can extend that same perspective to ourselves, and that can help us in not feeling fear and uncertainty, and we find more openness and appreciation and willingness to tolerate, not just tolerate, but appreciate the differences between us and other people, because we realize we're all different, and that can be beneficial for the world. Not in the world, for the world, like, oh, we're doing some do-good thing. It just feels good. When we start to do this, when we start to embrace what's unique about something in nature, and we start to appreciate it, and then it starts to in turn help us appreciate what's unique in us, and we start to appreciate that, and then we start to be more open and appreciate others. It not only creates a harmony in the world, I think, but it's like you don't do it to create this fake harmony in the world. You do it because it just feels right. It just is what's right. It's like this amazing essence of, I think, what we in our natural state are meant to be, which is to be in harmony, with these other unique, beautiful creations in the world. And I find that the more that I understand this, the more that I open up to it, the more I practice living in this way. And I find that it benefits me. And while I am sad that we had to say goodbye to one of our chickens, I also can appreciate almost like what must have been the design or the divine plan of that happening, because it has reminded me of something, so critical that I think my soul has wanted me to remember about the essence of each of us being so different, and how as we start appreciating and tuning into that, the benefits that we can experience as a result. So that is what I wanted to talk about in today's episode, and I'm going to leave it at that until the next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Power of Nature podcast. To learn more about me and my other offerings, you can visit my website at michellewaldo.com. That's MICHELLEWALDO.com.